Welcome to Oregon Voters Digest, the program that brings forward the social and political issues that are important to people living here in the Pacific Northwest. And now, your host, Bruce Broussard.
Welcome again to this segment of the Oregon Voters Digest. I'm Bruce Broussard, your host. Again, folks, we're sort of like right in the middle of the political aspect of it. Right now, you know, we got the national situation. Look like after hearing President Obama his State of the Union address the other day before the Congress and the Senate and the like, it was a very interesting speech. He basically talked about his platform. And then all along, the Republican Party has been holding debates, as you note. They're running among themselves and trying to establish a platform. Several of them are they're sort of divided, if you will, in the Republican Party at this point in time. They pretty well don't know just who they're going to be able to pick to basically be able to run against President Obama. So it's coming around, but I think at the end of the day, once we find out who the candidate will be on the Republican side, we already got the one on the Democratic side, and that's the incumbent President Obama. And then at that point in time, then we'll pretty well know what the platform is all about, and then we'll spend more time here at the Oregon Voters Digest addressing those issues, because I think it's a very, very important. But again, it's a very timely situation. I like the idea that the Republicans are holding those debates because it gives you an idea. Everything gets thrown on the table, and that's the good thing about it. You know exactly what we're going to be facing with. We got all sorts of activists on the other side of the deal. We got people with money involved in this process. But more so today, money is not the only entity that's going to basically come up with the results. You know, it's about this piece of device that I carry around. We all have one. It's this one right here. This gives you a news. You can own your own newspaper, your own radio station, your own TV show, just right here with this issue right here. Okay, this particular piece right here, that cell phone. And things are changing on an ongoing basis. You can talk to this thing. It talks back to you. I mean, it's just something else. And I'm glad that I'm here to be a part of the process. Okay, so with that, what we're going to do this time around in this particular show is that we're going to spend some time here locally and maybe focus on some of the political activities that are happening here locally. And I'm going to be able to do that with my guest today. He's a young man that has been, boy, I tell you, he's been getting all kinds of media here in the local publication. I don't know if you've seen it yet, but honestly, we might be able, there it is right there. You might be able to get some of it there, right there across there. You might not see it yet. It hasn't. Okay, there it is. You can pretty well see it on the screen right there. Okay, and that's from the Portland Observer. And whatever it takes, this young man who happens to be running either as the heading goes, Occupy activist follows arrest with run for mayor. And I'm talking about Cameron Whitten. He's 20 years old, and young man's been here only 3 years, and he's out there doing something. And we've just gone through the Occupy Portland, Occupy Wall Street, Occupy Portland. Kind of pretty well focus it here in our area, and he was very much involved in that deal. And in all due respect, you know, everyone has their way of, quote, getting involved. And sometimes, most of the time, it's just activism. But my position is that if you really want to get involved and put the issues out on the table and discuss those issues and to see whether or not, in fact, they make sense and better our way of life here in the Portland metropolitan area, then guess what you need to do? You need to run for office so that your peers, if you will, can say, yes, we'd like for you to be, if you will, one of our leaders within our community. And so anyway, so I'm excited about the fact that he is one of 18 people that have filed. Some have filed formally, and some are still picking up their 100 names, or if not that, they haven't put up that $50 yet, but they've indicated that they're going to be running. So we got about 18 so far, and they were going to all be running for mayor. And it was said also too that back when Vera ran years back, there was another situation where let me see. I think this is over here. I got this one right here. I got so much material here with this young man's name in here. But when Vera ran in 2004. In 2004, when Mayor Vera Katz, she ran in 2004. 23 people ran for mayor at that point in time. And a young man by the name of Jake Okenberger, okay, yeah, he basically, he ran, And I think Jake was about 19 or 20 during that particular time.
He was 22.
He was 22, so you're younger than he. I'm getting ready to introduce my guest here. But anyway, Oakenberger was 22 years old, and he pulled 27% of the vote, and she had 55%, so she had more than 51%, so they didn't have to worry about a runoff. And it just so happened I ran during that particular time. And I'm thinking that I know I had more experience, more exposure, more involvement, to say the like, but I didn't get the type of exposure that Jake got. He got all kinds of press, the whole 9 yard. He wasn't in business. He was still in school. I mean, on and on and on and on. But I really felt that had I been given the opportunity to get that kind of media, I didn't have the money. I really didn't have the money. You're not going to have, in all due respect, a person like myself is not going to have people knocking on the door and say, here's $100,000 or $200,000 or $300,000 to run a very effective race. And so anyway, but I did run. I felt, as far as I'm concerned, I ran a credible race. I put some issues on the table, and the media had to carry some of those things. So that was a good deal. But this time around, we've got a young man, and that's who my guest is today. I'm talking about Cameron Whitten. He's here with me today, and I would like to welcome you aboard, Cameron.
Hey, how's it going?
Fantastic. He's 20 years old, not 22 or 23 years old, and it's going to be interesting to see whether or not the media continues, if you will, the media keeps the attention on your particular campaign. They've got you here on the front page of the Portland Observer. That's the one I just showed you. They've got you. They had you in the Tribune.
Front page.
Big time. The front page of the Tribune.
Fold, yeah.
Yeah, big time. And they got you in there again, if you will, in the Tribune. They've got your names mentioned in the Oregonian. So you're really right out there.
Interview with them tomorrow too.
You're going to be interviewing with them tomorrow? That's a fantastic deal. And he's really, so in all due respect, I would hope that the media give him the same coverage and respect that they gave Jake back in those days when he was running against Vera. And I really think that there can definitely be a runoff, as far as I'm concerned. We got three major candidates that are going to be running. It's going to be a tough, but I really foresee a runoff in this particular race, because you got three other major candidates, and I'm talking about Charlie Hale, and you've got the young lady, you got Jefferson Smith, and then you've got the young lady,
Eileen Brady. So
he knows them all. I like that with this young person right here. I don't have to worry about thinking as much as I have to.
Yeah.
Right, Cameron? Well, hey, you're meeting Cameron. Here's Cameron right here.
Hey, how's it going?
There's a young man right there. He's got quite a personality, I tell you, very much so. And I was very excited to read the articles, as if to say he has to have something on the ball, because these folks, I'm sure they vetted him to a certain degree. But the fact of the matter is, Occupy Portland, whether you recognize it or not, is that it is an issue. Young people are involved. And I know many of us might object to their involvement but the fact is we've got to respond and get involved with the process. Let's come on, let's smell the coffee, because the day has changed. Things have changed. And then all we have to do is be a part of that, be responsible. We've got background, and it's just a matter of us making sure that we got the right platform, that it is a better way of life for us to live. I mean, many of us are seniors, baby boomers at this point in time. We're looking for good retirement, if you will, being able to live within our respective communities and walk down to the store in the evening, regardless of what night it is, being able to ride on TriMet, not having any problems, alterations. I mean, I'm concerned about the situation that was happening on TriMet, and just lately, a young man, 11 years old, young kid, 11 years old, was carrying a weapon. And was brandished this weapon to this young lady that he was arguing with, if you will, on TriMet. I mean, it's a sad situation. Yeah. So we got problems. Yeah. And I just don't blame the young person.
Exactly.
I blame the environment that we're into, because a lot of times our environment is dependent upon the exposure.
Yeah.
It's all about exposure, right?
Yeah.
So we got to have a better environment, kind of a routine. So when I'm interviewing Cameron here, I want you to understand I'm doing two things. I'm sort of like sharing with him some of the issues that I'm familiar with and are the concerns that I have. And at the same time, I'm wanting him to share his issues and his concerns with the table. And so between the two of us, he'll be, hopefully from that, he'll be able to establish the platform that has a better mix. And that's why we're doing it here at the Oregon Voters Digest. And as you can see, he happened to be a person, he happens to be an African American. And but the fact of the matter is, as you know, in this city of Portland, we don't have a black community. We have a community where a number of the residents happen to be black. Some people are constantly talking the word gentrification. I mean, there's all kinds of things, you know. But the fact of the matter is, we're an American community across the board. We're Portland. We pay taxes. Everybody pays taxes, the whole 9 yards. So it's very, very important that we make sure that we put the issues on the table, and we want to make sure we're given the opportunity to express what these issues are to this record number of candidates. We got 18 of them that have already signed up, and they're saying they're going to go over the 23 mark. No, and in all due respect, I'm very concerned about the issue, because if in fact they're not going to be talking about the issues that I'm very familiar with, that you all are too, whereas if they don't continue, if they don't address these issues, you may be looking at another person. I might be the 20th person to run. Whatever. But the fact of the matter is, we got enough candidates. All we need to do is educate them about what the issues are in Portland. So that's why we're here. Cameron, welcome aboard.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
Man, you're doing an excellent job. I noticed you got a flyer here. I'll put this up. You got this one right here. I like this too. Cameron for Unity, 2012. For
Yes.
Unity. Cameron for Unity. You had Cameron for mayor. He has Cameron for mayor of 2012. But he crossed that out and with a rose there called Unity. Man, I tell you, you've got some marketing ability. I like that. I looked at your website.
Yeah.
Very professionally done.
Thank you.
You're not just the average Joe Blow, but you're a young person. You know how to put that stuff together.
Exactly.
You got me? And I take it you must have about at least $500,000 in the bank.
Oh, I wish. I've been told I'm the 1%. I want to see this money. I want to see this.
Well, you know, just on that particular note, and then we'll just get right into who you are. When you start thinking about, you hear about all this money and whatever, it's really just communicating to the electorate, to the voter. In most cases, who are not looking at TV, who are not reading the newspapers, who are not listening to radio. You got my point? So consequently, the people with the money get to the majority voters through visual aids, i.e. brochures and the like, right? Mm-hmm. And a lot of times they have to pay for that, get professional individuals to make them look like the one and only, right? Yeah. And then whether they get the ads in the newspapers or this, that, and the other, naturally the newspapers and all the media are not going to say no, even though they might be lying. Mm-hmm. Or fibbing, right? They want to run that ad to get that money. It's all about the dollar, in all due respect. And I'm not trying to take anything away. But the fact of the matter is that you can't really get to the masses unless you have the opportunity to get in the front of a tube, somebody like myself interviewing you, or getting in the newspapers and the like. And I'm sensing that you're sharp enough to understand that.
I understand it completely, and fortunately enough, we have had Occupy Portland happen, and it's really brought to light the fact that money is so integral to politics right now. And it's a huge concern because there are so many people who have been caught in a glass ceiling. The fact that they do want to cause this change, but they know they don't have the dime, they don't have the money to buy their way in, that they know it's a waste. And so luckily that the media is now aware that they can't keep doing this anymore, that people really want the voice of the people to be heard. And so I've been able to come in during this critical moment and show that I don't have money, and I want to change campaign finance to make it sure that people can be represented regardless of whether they have money or not, because the people who are most affected are the ones who don't have money. So we're in a vicious circle. We're in a vicious circle where we can't get out because the people who need the change can't run for office. And so I want to change that.
Well, like you said, as we were talking, I mean, I'm not trying to occupy the entire conversation here, but the point that you're making is that you're really talking about issues.
Yes.
You're really talking about issues. It's unfortunately that money prevents you from getting the issues on the table.
Exactly.
In a more effective way. You got me? Because that's what we should be talking about.
You look at the PBA, they had their candidates forum, and you're not considered viable.
What is a PBA?
The Portland Business Alliance, they had their candidates forum, and if you have not raised $10,000, you're not considered a viable candidate.
Wow, $10,000. Unless you have $10,000.
Exactly.
So there's a segregated version right there.
Exactly.
Wow, preventing you from actually coming up there.
Exactly.
Did they give you any options, for instance, from the standpoint of why don't you just put down your issues and then give them to us, and then we'll cite them to our membership?
That's not how the Portland Business Alliance works.
Oh, tell me, how do they work?
Well, they are known to be the city's biggest lobbying firm. They're definitely very involved in politics. They're located on Southwest Market up there, and they are very involved. And they hold candidates forums, and the sit and lie ordinance, that's a very infamous ordinance which was deemed unconstitutional. That was hugely backed by the PBA. And so that's their organization. They are a coalition of business owners across the city, and they are very outspoken on what they believe the issues the city should be invested in, and they spend a lot of time lobbying for specific candidates they believe represent their interests.
Well, tell me this, two things. One, did you approach them? Did you try to get in touch with them?
When they were doing their forums, I had not yet considered running for mayor.
Okay, but will you be approaching them?
I will approach them. There were other candidates who did approach them for an interview, and they were not allowed, such as...
And secondly, now that you have file.
Yes.
Okay, you have file. Have they sent you any material in terms of what their issues are?
No.
They've not sent you. They've not contacted you in any way, shape, or form.
No.
Okay. That's another issue.
That is another issue.
Now let's go back to Occupy Portland. How did you get involved in that process?
So since I've been in Portland,
Right.
I've been completely involved in activism. I have volunteered in so many places right around Portland, Meals on Wheels, Free Greek, in other words, a diverse amount of organizations.
And downtown Portland specifically?
Mostly inner Portland. It wasn't just downtown, but definitely on the east side as well.
Okay.
The one that was specifically affiliated with at the time was Food Not Bombs, which is an organization of empowered people. It's not a nonprofit. It's just a group of people who realize that we have a system which spreads the myth of food shortage to keep prices high and keep people starving, even though we have an abundance of food that's always going to waste. And we have, all this food which can be grown in empty lots. And so what they do is they collect food and they give it out to free, and they do that every day. And so when they heard about Occupy Wall Street happening, they were on board. This instant someone suggested that Occupy Portland startup, and through that organization I was able to get involved, and I was there from the first march, and I camped out in the park the entire time. And I've been involved since.
Wow. So the idea is that your involvement, if you will, you were exposed, if you will, to these various groups,
yes.
right? And you were just sitting there listening, right?
Yes.
And trying to make some sense of it all, right? And
yes.
these are very dedicated folks, I'm sure, in these organizations or whatever.
Extremely.
And so from that, like you said, you got in the Occupy Portland movement aspect of it. You went down there and whatever. What were some of the activities that were going there in Occupy Portland while you were there?
There's tons of activities.
Is that right?
There's probably over 20 committees that were in the camps at the time. You had
20 committees.
20 committees. Info tent. You had engineering. You had food. You had peace and safety. You had sanitation. I could go off. You had facilitation. You had media. You had PR. You had web team.
Wow.
Yes. You had the religious aspect. So there was a committee for basically any need that was there. So we had people who were doing mental health issues. We had people who were feeding others. We had people who were providing solutions to our political problems. We had people who were organizing actions and demonstrations. So we had people who were for once empowered to do things. And the fact that we had such a diverse voice and such diverse tactics going on, the media was very confused. They didn't understand that we didn't have a solidified message, because we had all these people who were finally at once realizing they could do things and they could do what they wanted without people telling them they couldn't.
One of the concerns that the citizens had in regards to what the mayor was trying to put was the idea that it occupied a major park right there in front of City Hall, if you will. And the fact of the matter is that the point was there was no permit gotten, if you will. Can you talk to that? Did you hear anybody? Was there anyone there responsible for picking up a permit or talk to that issue, or what? How did that come about?
So the issue with the permit, this whole experience has been very intentional. Every part about it has been thought out with complete consideration. Okay. And what it is right now, it is civil disobedience. This is a civil rights movement. And it's the fact that the people of the public have elected officials to govern them with their best interests, to protect the welfare of the people. And they have access to these public commons. And you can tell with our society, there's so much oppression that's going on. There's so many needs that aren't being met due to social, political, and economic inequality. The people decided that they are going to use their public commons, which they pay taxes for, which is supposed to belong to them, as a venue to air their grievances and demand a change in our government. And so they did not believe they needed a permit to practice some civil disobedience to show that the people who have the legal power are misusing it. And so they're there to make a statement saying that we've had enough of that, and we aren't going to leave from the front of City Hall till we see some changes.
Now, tell me this. Was there ever a meeting of maybe a few leaders with the mayor to kind of maybe talk to the fact that they're going to be camping there and be talking about these issues and whatever? And were you a part of that? Did you have access to that?
We did select a few individuals
to
talk. Yes.
To talk to the mayor.
Yes.
At the beginning.
Yes, in the beginning.
In the beginning.
And there was an official time, I believe it was like the day after Sam Adams decided to close the camps, that those people who were selected to begin communication with them stopped. And they made an official resignation from those duties because there was no communication. And, even though they presented Sam Adams saying that there are a lot of mental health issues that have been going on in the city, and now that we are demonstrating here in these parks, a lot of those mental health issues are now concentrated in this area. Can you please send some help? Can you please send some social workers, which you say are in this Rose City pamphlet? And they never got back to them. And they decided to say that it was unsafe and there was nothing we could do. And we're just going to shut down these two parks and let the problems disperse back over the city again.
So what I'm hearing you saying is that that there were some considerations given at the beginning about quote, what can we do? It's sort of a compromise kind of a deal. We're willing to we clean the park up, or we can raise some monies, and
we had the fire marshal there. We had health services. The health services said we were perfectly fine. Fire marshal was saying that the wet wood that we had was a fire hazard. We were in Portland and it rains all the time, so that was interesting. But we did follow all the regulations that we were given. We were very compliant.
But like I said, from that initial piece, there was an attempt to sit down and discuss the occupation, if you will, of the park, and have all the entities at the table, and it's okay, fine. This is what you do. This is our requirement, if you will, from the city. This is what we have to do. We can compromise this, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Because this stuff was happening all over the country, for that matter, in many ways. And so naturally, folks were trying, depending upon which area you were in, people were trying to compensate to allow this to happen. Fair? Yes. It wasn't kind of a situation where you bring tanks and whatever and just pull everybody out. You got me? Again, that's been one of the issues that every city has, for that matter. And I've always felt strongly about the fact that there's always the issue about the confrontation between police and let's say a demonstrator. And that's been one of the lacking points here within the city of Portland. I think what needs to be done, citizens need to know exactly what the duties are and charges of a police department.
Yes.
They need to know that. So then they would know, then let them do their job. And vice versa, the police department needs to know exactly the pros and the cons with reference to that charges, if you will, to the people. And I think that's a moment, we've not had that kind of a focus, if you will.
No, we haven't.
And it's my understanding, we talked a little bit about that before we got on the show. And that might be an area that you might be interested in doing, right?
Yeah, police relations is a huge concern for me. And it's not even about Occupy Portland, because there's a history of community policing being an issue in Portland. There's not enough of it. We have, in this current term and semester of police chiefs and mayor, efforts to engage with the community have been slim. And so we do have that concern of how can we really make sure that there is that communication, that the police who are a part of our city stay involved and know who they're defending.
Right.
And so the fact that it's been such an issue for so long, and there's been such a disconnect, now that they had to deal with a certain group of people for a prolonged experience, the tensions just got higher. They weren't used to having to be there to listen to people, and they were only just learning before the camps ended up being disbanded.
But you have no problem from the standpoint of saying, hey, you're going to draw these folks to the table, let's sit down and talk.
Exactly.
All right.
We had liaisons of the police who were there to communicate with them.
Well, what were some of the other issues that you think were on the table? I mean, any specific issues? I mean, we talked about the 1%. We talked about that piece. But what about some other issues? Were there other issues that were wanting to be addressed from the group?
I believe that as the 99%, all of the issues that you had were diverse, and they were very specific to the person was. But it mostly had to do with the fact that we are not being represented.
Okay.
Because we all have yes, it's the key. Inequality is so high, and you can see that these representatives are doing nothing about that. We have people who need health care. We have people who need food, people who need jobs, people who need to feel safe, people who want to have corporations no longer controlling elections, corporations who can't damage the environment for no reason, corporations who want to be able to take away constitutional rights from people. We don't want banks being able to be bailed out and then buy government bonds and create this cycle of debt. We have all these ideas, and nobody is there representing that in our government. Nobody's representing that. We have so many people, and I'll call them out. We have anti-statists, we have anti-capitalists, we have people who are socialists, we have people with all these different ideas, and they actually do have huge followships, but they are stifled by corporate media all the time because corporate media is owned by our government. They basically have to talk about things that are approved by Republicans and Democrats.
You know, as I'm hearing you speak, like you said, it's like anything else. You're activists, basically. You have to be if you're going to be involved in politics anyway. They're all activists, for that matter.
Yeah.
Some have more money than others, but it's still, it comes down to the same deal. But as I hear you speaking, I guess the thing is, when you filed to run for office, you filed how long ago?
I filed a prospective nomination form.
Okay.
My other file I have not sent in yet.
Okay. But when you picked up those papers, did they give you any sense of orientations or whatever from the standpoint of say, well, we're going to schedule you for an orientation at City Hall to talk about the duties and et cetera, and defining the mayoral office that you're running for? Did you get that?
They did not do that.
Is this something that you'd be of interest if in fact you were elected mayor, to make sure that the people get the idea? I mean, because it's freedom here. You know, anybody can run for office, but a lot of times people don't know what the issues are.
Exactly.
They need to know what the specific issues are of the city as it sits right at this point in time and futures. Right? Fair?
Yes, and I would say that Portland is good with its attempts at civil engagement, but there is that issue. There is that glass ceiling of they have a website and they're saying, oh, well, because we have information on there, you should just know what the city's about. And I believe there's a huge disconnect because there are so many people who can't afford the internet. There are so many people, you know, the city tried to do a Wi-Fi program, which they kind of just stopped. They abandoned it because of funding. And there are people who don't use that technology. You know, you have the older age of people who really don't trust and don't pick up an iPod and they're just like, what is this? Is that a remote? So there is that huge disconnect. It should be a much stronger connection between citizens and their government. And we used to have civic engagement programs that used to be like mandatory in our schools, and we've kind of lost that. So that needs to be an integral part of what we do when we move into the future.
So I like what you're saying, because as you think about this thing, maybe the mayor, he's not an incumbent. He's not running again this time around. It would be an opportunity for Mayor Adams, if you will, to hold an orientation process with all the folks who are running for office, just to kind of lay out the land. You know, this is the expectation. These are the things that are happening here. These are some of the priorities that we're having. This is where I've done, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. You know what I'm saying? And then that way, it focuses, if you will, the campaign of who can actually be more responsive to the issues at the table.
Exactly.
Is that a fair situation?
Very fair.
And we were talking about that, and you kind of made a reference to that, and I like what you said about that particular piece. Okay, another piece. Let me ask you now, as you note that 18 people have pretty well said they're going to be running for office, and they've cited 3 of the leading proponents. You talked about the $10,000 or better, and both basically it's Brady. You got Brady, you've got Charlie Hill, and you've got Jefferson Smith. Now, tell me, what of those 3 people, the Occupy Portland, was going on at that particular time? Did they come to the site, kind of get a sense, and talk with you to kind of get a sense of what's going on and what are your issues? And
none of them came to the site, but when the demonstration happened at the Pearl District, Charlie Hales, who helped create that area, was there to watch, and he was very disappointed. He was there to protest against our demonstration.
Yeah. But did he approach any of the folks up there to say, hey, look, just walk right into the crowd and say, hey, look, let me tell you whether you're breaking the rules?
He didn't talk to any of the people or civilians that were in the area. He talked to the park rangers.
And that was it?
That was it.
Okay. Well, you know, it's like anything else. If you're going to be running for office, especially going to be running for the mayor of the city of Portland, you got to be able to address all the issues and all the problems.
Exactly.
It didn't have to go that long, but Sam was a one-person kind of a person to a certain degree, you know what I mean? But he is the mayor of the city. Yeah. But the fact of the matter is, you got to communicate with folks. It didn't have to go into those, these major numbers, if you will, that we looked at. What about,
the other, and then the other big concern was, remember that statistic that he pulled out about crime, being raised? Right. Well, he took that statistic from 10 months before that other one. And so there were a lot of issues that were raised trying to discredit the movement. Like when Mike Reese said, the chief police. He said, a rape happened, Occupy Portland got in the way, we weren't able to deal with this crisis. There were a lot of issues that were false, statements that were made intentionally to make us look bad, and those were the ones that were used to say that this is unsafe, that Occupy isn't what we expected it to be, and we're going to have to get it out of the campsites.
Well, granted, like I say, a lot of folks were upset. We agree to that.
I understand that.
Good.
Yeah.
Tell you what we're going to do, Cameron. We're going to take a short break, and then we'll come back and continue this discussion.
Great.
Fair with you? Take a short break, folks. We'll be right back with Cameron. Running for mayor.
How's that?
See, that was good.
You are watching Oregon Voters Digest. This program can be seen again on these channels on these dates and times. Tell a friend.
Welcome back, folks. We're basically interviewing a young man, 20-year-old young man here in the Portland metropolitan area that's running for mayor of the city of Portland. 18 folks have already filed, if you will. That's under the prelim, and then there's the formal filing aspect of it. But he's in the prelim aspect of it at this point in time. But he's committed to formalize this campaign, and he's got quite a website. It was on the, in fact, put that back on the screen. His website. He's my guest today, and boy, I tell you, check out the website. I mean, it was very professionally done, and it's not just like someone just wanting to just do something, but it just shows you the capacity that we're in terms of technology and whatever, that you can run for office very effectively. Okay, there it is right there, Cameron Whitten for mayor. Was that?
Oh, the website's Cameron for Unity.
Yeah, Cameron for Unity. Yeah, right. Okay, you got that down there, Cameron. Whitten for Unity.com. Okay, you can call him or text him at 503-890-5716. Really good. Welcome back, Cameron. Well, look, this is very interesting. What are some of the other things? And when I think of Oakenberg, I remember him. He was running. He was doing a little running downtown. He was just basically doing a run, just showing how physically fit he was downtown. Had a permit to run.
That's funny.
So now I'm interested in terms of, now you've got the Occupy Portland piece. Are you looking at running or maybe doing an occupying piece again? I noticed that you had one photo. This is the one that was in the Observer. You were at the smallest park, Millions Park in downtown Portland. You were there just basically, you took your photo from that piece. What are some of the things you're looking at doing to try to get access to folks?
Well, what's most important is that I get engaged in the community. I've been going to neighborhood association meetings. I've been knocking on doors. Mm-hmm. So I plan on seeing every person's face who's going to vote for me, because it's really important to break that disconnect, to really show that it is my goal to make sure that everybody gets represented equally and that we all have the same voice.
Well, I guess you are young enough. You don't necessarily need the $1 million to run, right?
Exactly.
Because you're not going to be able to raise that kind of money. I'm sure.
I don't want to raise that kind of money.
You don't want to raise that kind of money. Why is that so?
It's really important for us to try to get money out of politics. You look at Measure 47, which was voted in 2006.
And what was 47?
That was the one saying that campaign contributions can't be over $100 for public office within Oregon, and that corporations and unions could not donate any finances. And basically, what's weird is because Measure 46 didn't get passed, that would change the charter of the Oregon Constitution, saying that campaign laws can be enforced and whatnot. But you can see that it's obvious that there is a huge push to have money no longer being a predominant factor in our political system. And so we really need to find a way to make sure that people can be advocated for and can actually have a solid platform without having to raise extravagant amounts of money, because that money should be going towards schools. That money should be going towards society and towards a better economy and for a future that we all can invest in. So.
Well, tell me this now. Now, I realize you've only been here about 3 years, and it's like anything else. There's a little OJT time. It's my understanding that's what you're going to be doing, knocking on doors, whether it be organizations or whether it be homeowners or whatever, knocking on, trying to get a sense of what the issues are, right?
Yeah. Because
we can't get it through the quote filing process, right? We've already gone through that process, so you're going to have to do some work. Is that fair?
Yep.
And you're not going to raise the kind of monies that you need. I'm sure you don't. Has a super PAC contacted you?
I'm only accepting $200 per individual because I believe in campaign finance limitations, because we should all have an equal access to our politicians, and we can't have that when people can donate $10,000, $20,000, and some people can only give $5. So we really need to break that inequality down, and so I'm willing to take that step and ask for much less.
Well, good. Well, that was a former Mayor Tom Potter, who basically did the same thing, and he was very successful in his own right aspect of it. However, he did have a little bit more exposure being former chief, police chief, but he was a very effective person. He was very much involved in community policing and a lot of other things that he did, if you will. I don't know whether his daughter is still on the force or not, but I don't know if he's retired or not. But anyway, he's known. You may want to give him a call and stop by and say hi to him, and you get a sense of maybe he might support you. Because a lot of times the endorsement means a lot.
Well, he's already endorsed Eileen Brady.
Was that now?
He's already endorsed Eileen.
Yeah. Well, but Tom is a good man. He might just say, well, look, I might have endorsed Eileen, but I like Cameron. Tell him I told you to go by and see him anyway. I'm saying, Bruce,
totally. I will.
But why not sit down with him?
I want to talk to everybody.
Yeah, there you go. There you go. You want to make sure
we all have value.
You do that. And understand. By the way, we're going to open up the lines here in a minute. Here, anytime you guys are ready to open up the line, if anybody want to chat, make a comment or so to Cameron while he's here at the Oregon Voters Digest with me, please feel free to call. We'll put the number on the screen and give us a call. I'll continue to talk to Cameron here. We're going to give him his hours and give him his plan. And I plan to interview some of the rest of the candidates that are running too. Cameron's come up with an idea. He might get that 1%, if you will, of representation of all the other. Let's see, that would be right now would be 15 candidates. 15 candidates, the ones who are not considered that didn't have $10,000 or better. He's looking at the possibility of organizing all those folks together and maybe getting together and discussing their various issues and whatever.
We can only have good politics if we have transparency.
That's right.
So we all need to have our voices heard.
Well, that's good. I'd like to join that, by the way. I'd like to help you out on that piece.
All right, cool.
I appreciate that. Because it's all about the people. It's not to say that I don't know I know Charlie real well. I know Charlie. I know of him. I know Jefferson Smith. I know him. And I know his dad real well, Joe Smith. Know him real well. Not familiar with the young lady that's running, but I'm sure that we'll have her on the show. And because March is the deadline. We want pretty well know who are the candidates. We still might have an open flooded door here, so can't interview everybody at one time. But maybe this idea of yours getting everybody together, we might put together a forum. Maybe put it right here at the studio.
I love
all
it.
Those candidates. Get
Let's
15 of them. Put them right. Can you do that? You help me organize that piece?
I'll help you organize it.
You're good. That's good. I appreciate you brought up the idea.
Of course.
I think it's a good idea. People just need to be heard because we're all here. And we're all living here in the city of Portland, and we should all be respected. Transparency is a very key. There's the number on the screen, folks. You can give us a call right here, 503-288-4442 or 503-288-4448. And if you got anything that you'd like to share with this young man here as to what you felt are the issues that are facing the city of Portland, then give him a call. Not only will he hear them, but the other viewing artists will hear it, and maybe the other candidates may hear it, because also the other medias will also will have access to this piece, and the other candidates. I think it's very important. It's very, very important to educate anybody that's running for office, if running for mayor, city council, Congress, or whatever. Why not give them an orientation in terms of what are the issues, as opposed to the media asking the candidate, well, what are the issues? They're covering the issues on an ongoing basis. I mean, it's best to get right down to the meat of the matter and say, okay, fine, if you don't know that particular issue, let me tell you about it.
Yeah.
And where you need to go, okay? Because I think it's very, very important, and early on in the campaign, for that matter, to develop and address transparency. You can't say no to anybody running for office. because we're all creatures of our exposure, right?
Yeah.
And you know a little bit more about what you do in the other areas that I don't know.
Yeah.
But vice versa, the same boat. So it's very important that we know that. So folks, give us a call if you got a question of Cameron or any other candidates. It's very, very important, because here at the Oregon Voters Digest, we are community television, and that's what we're all about. We're about community, Cameron. That's what we're all about. Okay.
Good.
Okay. Let's talk about some other things about yourself. Let's talk a little bit about the issue of education. What's your focus? What's your feel about the concern about education that you brought up?
Well, we can only have an empowered community when we have education, and we can only have a true democracy when we have a social democracy where it's built off relationships of people who are enlightened with issues and know what's going on. And so it's really important that our children has access to education, because, you know, our confidence, we kind of gain that when we're in like preschool. That's how we know how confident we are. And we can only have that when we have knowledgeable kids who are able to access their creative sides. And, you know, we need to have vocational training as well, because that's something else we've lost. We've lost the ability to create business for ourselves. I don't know how to repair a car. I don't know how to, you know, design a building. You know, I don't know all of the basic services that we need to have a moving city. And, you know, I couldn't access that when I was in school. You know, I would have to wait into community college for that to happen. And, you know, we've kind of lost our ability for people to be independent and to have the power to knock on someone's door and be like, I have a trade knowledge, I can help you out. You know, we have pretty much lost our ability to be entrepreneurs. And I really want to see a city which really supports, you know, entrepreneurship and actually have a foundation that we all can be participants in.
Well, I like that, because that's been one of the areas that I've been very interested in, and from the standpoint that in the city of Portland, for your information, we don't have a voc ed in all the schools. We don't have it. Goes back when community college came to the state of Oregon, and obviously, to be straight up with it, came on the back of blacks up in Northeast Portland, the first community college. We basically took out voc ed out of the Portland Public Schools. Now, there are voc eds outside of the city of Portland Public Schools, but there's not any major focus on voc ed in the Portland Public Schools, i.e. you running for mayor. I'm saying, okay, fine, that's an area that we're very concerned with, because our young people have nothing to do. And in most cases, we got the highest dropout rates in the state of Oregon, okay? For across the board, too, by the way. It's not just, quote, African Americans or other minorities.
Exactly.
It's across the board, okay? So we need something that these young people who are parents are not lawyers or attorneys or people who are responsible, they're out there, okay? They have nothing else to do. So they need something, whether it be auto mechanics or whether it be shop work, wood shop, or drafting, or home ec for the young women and whatever. So we need to get something back. And I might add, too, Cameron, so for your information, that maybe we're at a time that, within our education system, that it shouldn't be from K1 to K12. It should be from K1 to K14. So when a young person graduates from school, they've gotten an associate degree. What do you think about that? What do you think about that?
I think it's brilliant.
Is that something that, as mayor, you'd help promote?
I'd help promote it, yes.
Okay. Would you think that you would consider that being part of your platform, maybe?
I would consider part of my platform. Education is so important, and it's up to the voters to really choose what they want.
Right.
If they really want those vocational programs and they vote for it, then I will make sure it happens.
Well, we're going to be dependent upon you, because if you're going to be mayor, we got to make sure that that's what you're going to focus on. Have you ever considered maybe signing off on a contract, and once you've identified your platform, to say, okay, fine, if I run for mayor, I will be doing these points?
My entire platform is about working off a consensus.
Okay.
So everything that I do is based off what the public wants.
Okay.
And so I've seen that huge conflict of interest where we have so many people who are in office and they have advisors and whatnot, and that's who they listen to, and they have their bureaus. But we really need to make it so there is more consensus going on. That means listening to every neighborhood and every person who's around and knowing that these issues are the ones that they support. You know, you want to look at the Water Bureau and the Sewer Bureau being fined for lawsuits because that input was never taken into consideration. We really need to prevent that from happening. So I am all for vocational education. Just come to me and tell me that.
Okay. Well, you mentioned water. I think it's very interesting because sitting Commissioner Randy Leonard is the Water Bureau, and there's been a lot of talk about the Water Bureau and the problems and the rates and this, that, and the other. And known Randy for a number of years. He's very assertive. He's an activist in his own mind.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But a solid activist. He's done a lot for the city of Portland, and he's going to be giving up his particular seat. But again, too, when I think about him on that particular issue, is this somebody he's going to be leaving anyway? Have you knocked on his door?
I have not knocked on his door.
Are you going to consider knocking on his door?
I've talked to him before. I will consider it. I remember that when I was in City Hall and I talked to him one moment, he told me that he was not there to answer my questions.
He was not there?
Yes. I asked him about the procedure of limiting people's times because it was changed mid-council. To make it from 2 minutes to 3 minutes, and I asked him if they changed their procedures, and he ended up ignoring my question, saying that he did not have to answer it. So,
but now you're running for mayor.
Now I'm running for mayor.
And now I'm saying, so basically, he's leaving. So, my point is that he's a very knowledgeable person.
Yes.
Maybe you should be able to approach him from the standpoint, I'm running for mayor, and I'd just like to get a feel for, what we were doing and what were some of the problems and what are some of the things that need addressing.
I will totally send him an email. I'm going to be meeting with Loretta Smith soon. She's a county commissioner. I've spoken to many people who have other offices.
Who is this now?
Loretta Smith.
Loretta Smith? Oh,
yes.
So you met with her?
I'm meeting with her.
Oh, you are meeting with her. So she's
the next few weeks.
You gave her a call?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, that's good. Metro Commissioner Loretta Smith. She was just appointed there, and she's doing a heck of a job. Formerly with, as you know, Senator Ron Whitten.
Yeah.
Very much. Okay. Well, that's good now. So she's going to be a senator. What about others? Are you going to be talking to any others?
I have an open door policy, and so.
But you are going to be contacting all of them.
Yes, I've contacted many of our local politicians, but as you know, it's easier for them to get in contact with me than for me to get in contact with them. So.
Well,
we'll see
like
what
I said,
happens.
but that's your job.
Yeah.
You got to get out there and do it because, like I said, unless you've got maybe $500,000 in the bank or something, people are not going to call you.
Exactly.
Okay? But you are running for mayor. That's a legitimate situation.
Yes.
And so consequently, they should at least talk. You never know. Some weird things happens in elections at times. You never know.
Very true.
And Cameron, with all this publicity that you're getting, the Observer, the Tribune, the Oregonian, and this, that, and the other, and if they gave you the same kind of coverage that they're doing now, if that's an indicator, maybe they picked you out of the 18. They say that you're the most responsible person.
Lucky number one.
Okay. But I still feel that the other folks who are running also, as far as I'm concerned, should be given the same respect.
Exactly.
Because they filed to run for office.
Exactly.
They're not just sitting on the sideline yelling and this, that, and that. I think it's far better in our community to be able to share your thoughts. And as you say, and then if the public wants you in there, they'll vote for you. If they don't, you don't get the vote. So at the end of the day, we're pretty well all satisfied because at least you can say, I put my issues on the table. I've given it my best shot. They didn't select me, but at least I got my issues on the table, and it's there, right?
Exactly.
In black and white, right? Is that fair? Okay. What about? Let's see. What about some of the others? What about the crime in the city of Portland? Have you looked at that at all? Have you thought about the whole issue of crime?
I've looked at it. Are you talking about
the youth crime? Let's say youth.
Youth crime.
Youth crime.
Okay.
The young people that are sort of involved in crime. You always have to see the headlines. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Gangs and this, that, and the other. In fact, have you approached any of the young people who are part of let's say an organization or a gang or whatever? Just sit down and chat with them, kind of get a sense of where you're coming from. What's your problem? What are your needs?
I am all for engaging them, and I believe the biggest issue is we have not tried enough prevention strategies. Okay. And I know that we currently are in an open discussion with the state saying that if we are able to have less prosecution for youth, that we can take that money and put the money saved from having to put people in jail, we could use that towards prevention. So I really see that there's going to be a shift in the future of Portland really engaging in prevention strategies and really start doing more community interaction and making sure that gang violence is not as bad as it used to be. And I believe that we are working towards that. We do have organizations, I forget the name of it, but there's one that does walk through periodically through Lloyd Center Park, Holiday Park. And that crime area has gone way down. And so I want to see that starting to happen within every neighborhood, within every zone.
Mm-hmm. Now, it's my understanding that that's at Holiday Park. You know John Canada. Does that ring a bell? Yeah. Have you met with him yet?
No.
Okay, Reverend Matt Hennessy.
Yeah, I know Reverend Matt.
Right. Now he supports Canada and that Holiday Park thing.
Yeah.
And they meet every Friday, right?
Yeah.
Are you going to consider going down there and
Of
walking?
course.
You're going to be going down there and walking with them? And I would say all to the other candidates, they should go down there and check out the situation and talk to those two guys, right?
Yes.
Fair? Now, the other thing you made mention about the fact that you went to church this morning.
Yes.
Where'd you go?
Went to Vancouver Baptist Church.
And who's the reverend there?
Pastor Hennessy's the
Pastor
reverend
Hennessy.
there. Yeah.
Did he recognize you?
He recognized me. He asked.
He did recognize you.
He introduced me to the congregation.
He did?
Yes.
So you had an opportunity to speak?
Yes.
Oh, good. That's good to recognize the ministry of this community, because that really is the force.
Yes.
If you will, to recognize, if you will, to be response to some of the issues that we're dealing with. Because whenever you start talking about gangs, people tend to target it from the standpoint that it's black. Mm-hmm. But it's just, hey, I belonged to a gang at one point in time called the Marine Corps.
True.
Solid Corps. I mean, it's a solid one. I'm still associated with the Marine Corps. Once a Marine, always a Marine.
Uh-huh.
But the fact of the matter is, we all have associations. You got me?
Exactly.
So if you can I like the idea that you're saying that you're going to go and try to sit down and kind of get a sense of what these young people are all about. Let them know about the issues and the concerns that citizens have. About carrying weapons and harassment and a lot of seniors, in this town. Being able to ride the bus, feel safe, our young women, and just right on down the line, something needs to happen, and I'm liking what you're saying about this, and like I say, it's my responsibility to share with you what are some of those concerns. You got me?
Yeah.
'Cause I'm in that same senior citizen situation. You got me? And there are a lot of other seniors around there. And a lot of times their parents can't even get out and walk to the corner store and get any milk without being harassed. So that's a very important piece, and want you to know that, okay? Okay, so that's the crime piece. What about the seniors, for that matter? We got quite a group of seniors here. Are you going to be visiting the senior citizen centers?
Oh, I will be. I'll be
Okay.
going to a lot of pinochle games.
You know pinochle game?
Yes.
You know how to play pinochle?
I do not, but I'll learn.
You don't know? Well, good. I'll play you then.
Okay.
Okay, but no, I think that would be good. It'd be quite an experience, to get to. They'll really
have the
open
most
up your ears.
wisdom.
Oh, they'll big time wisdom, and I would suggest you're going to be going around the city of Portland to all of the various senior citizens program, because a lot of times we right into the politics of color too, and whatever. That's another issue. Since the president was elected, race is on the table, and I think it's a good thing. We're discussing it. Okay.
Yes.
And maybe at the end of his term, after maybe put about another 4 years, we need another 4 years from him. You know what I mean? I think that'll be a good one. But the bottom line is race is an issue. And what are you dealing by? What's your feeling about race?
I believe the city
Go down.
has not yet been able to tackle equity properly. And I believe that there is a huge concern about social justice, especially for race. You want to look at who's being arrested the most. You want to look at, who's being shot the most. And it's people with mental health issues and people of color. And so there is a huge issue of not being able to deal with the fact that systemic oppression has hit Portland really bad. You want to look at Vanport, you want to look at exclusion laws, you want to look at redlining, and the fragments of that damage to our society is still there. And we really need to be able to see how we can make sure that we can fix these problems without it being gentrification, without it pushing the communities that have been deeply affected out of it. And we have not done that. And so that really means bringing economic and social justice issues to the table. And that includes the education aspect. It includes jobs. It includes politics. It really means empowering the communities that we have and encouraging more communities. We have the East Side, and they have, the action policy team. They don't get too much attention from politicians. They're told that because they have the lowest votership, that we don't really need to come over here and listen to you guys because you guys won't vote for us anyways. Mm-hmm. We really need to change that, because that's systemic oppression all over again. There's 73 languages spoken on the East. So we really need to start realizing that if we're going to be equitable, we're going to have to be speaking more than just English.
Mm-hmm. Well, good. Well, this has been very enjoyable, Ken. I hope you don't mind my taking advantage of the fact that you're running for mayor. I'm not. But I'm willing to help, from the standpoint of trying to share with you what I feel are some of the issues. And this is just from me and my involvement. As I don't know everything, but I do know something.
You know a lot.
I know something.
Yeah.
You got me? And I just want to make sure that I share some of these thoughts with you. And I like the attitude that you have from the standpoint that you're going to go out and knocking on doors, and you're going to be trying to talk to folks who are in office and various folks, whether it be from the senior citizen community, from the young people community, from working families and homeowners and the like. And I like your attitude. You don't necessarily join it. So I like what you're trying to do.
Thank you.
And hopefully that the viewing audience now have an opportunity now to get a feel for the kind of person you are. And hopefully the folks who are running, the other 18 folks who are running, or 17 folks who are running now, understand what we're talking about, and that they can get a sense of what they need to do also too. So this is kind of like an education. This is the orientation. We're giving them an orientation, right, for running for mayor, right, or running for office, right? Yeah. You got to know what the platform is, right? You got to be able to communicate with the folks, and if you don't have the money, you got to physically get out there and knock on the doors, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So we want to thank you for being a part of this, and I take my hat off for you, and I realize you're going to be vetted more. As you get more into the media, people are gonna be saying, okay, if I don't like him. But they're going to say, okay, fine, well, let's see if we can find something negative. And if we find something negative, that means that we can, then we can maybe get rid of him. Well, but I hope I can see that you within yourself, you're going to go on. You're going to move on and just stay focused to the issues, okay? And just be honest. And I think that's a very, very important piece. So I think you're going to do real well. And I'm going to hopefully maybe in the near future after March, or maybe before March, once you file and you are actually running for office, maybe we can have you sitting in my seat, and you can maybe do an interview with maybe one of the issues, whether it be a senior citizen group, whether it be with the police department, whether it be, the idea is to educate, right? Yeah, that's the key. But I would hope that the city would adopt in their so-called registration or application process for the mayor or any office for that matter, that they have an orientation period. Yeah. For anybody running for office, whether you got $1 in the bank or whether you got $1 million in the bank, they should call everybody at the table and say, these are the issues that we're faced with at this point in time, and have those people that are in those positions, even though they're incumbents. You know what I mean? Incumbent, as far as I'm concerned, is no different than a person running for office. Yeah. If they want to run again, they're just like themselves, right? Yeah. But the bottom line is that we need to do that because it's a very important piece. These are very serious times right now, Cameron, and we're looking for good, solid leadership. And I'm saying I'm looking for anybody, young or old. Yeah. If you've got some good leadership qualities, we want you to be in there to make those decisions. But at the same time, I think it's my responsibility to make sure I educate you about what my issues are. Yeah. So you see what I'm saying? So I don't want to be going around the bend or hiding, because if you don't have any money, it doesn't necessarily state that if you got money, you know what the issues are, and you're going to follow the deal. Because it's like anything else. The definition of the goal is that he who has the goal rule. Okay. So Cameron, it's been a pleasure. Thank you very much for being with us. Okay. And folks, that's what we're talking about. And as George Page always said, back to what you believe in.